Support for Jeff Needs Sports is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision engineered tools for your family jewels. They obsess over their technology developments to provide you with the best tools for your grooming experience. Manscaped is trusted by over 2 million men worldwide. We have an exclusive offer for my listeners today. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code JHUNT. That's capital J-H-U-N-T at manscaped.com. Hey, welcome back to Jeff Needs Sports, everybody. Thanks for listening. If you're first time, thanks for joining us. If you're a returner, we appreciate all the love. So today's episode is all about the 2021 quarterbacks in general. And I've got a fellow member of the Off the Ball Network on here to join me. I got Thaddeus Bell. How are you doing today?
I'm good, man. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you're from the Brown and Bell Hour. If anybody knows Jelani, What the Game Needs to Me, you guys teamed up and you do a great weekly show. And you're kind of new to the network, and we're happy to have you. And I'm glad to have you on to do a show with you today, man. This is exciting.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it, man. Ready to talk some ball.
Absolutely. So a little behind the scenes information in our chat room. We discuss quarterbacks a lot out there. We've got an off the ball chat room that's always going 24 hours a day, honestly, 24 hours a day. Talk a lot of quarterbacks or whatever. I did some shows not too long ago. Thad hits me up and he's like, I'd love to talk quarterbacks anytime. They talk quarterbacks. So finally we're getting together to get everything out of the way. The draft is, coming up really, really soon. So we're going to go over his draft rankings, his ratings, what he thinks of some of the drama. And then also we're going to discuss some of the new faces in the NFL and guys moving around and stuff. So that's what today's show is going to be. So we're going to kick it off, man. Let's show everybody. We'll just start with the 2021 quarterback draft class. And this is Thad's rankings right here. So for those of you not watching and listening, we got Trevor Lawrence from Clemson, number 1. We got Justin Fields out of Ohio State at number 2. We got Zach Wilson out of BYU, number 3. We got Trey Lance from North Dakota State, number 4. We got Mac Jones out of Alabama, number 5. We got Davis Mills from Stanford at number 6. At number 7, we got Kellen Mond from Texas A&M. And then rounding out the top 8 that we're going to discuss a little bit today, we got Kyle Trask out of Florida. So this is your class, man. So one of the first questions I have out of many is what out of the overall class, how do you feel how good it is historically?
You'll never know until they actually get on the field and perform. But for now, off of eye test and what I've seen over the past 2 to 3 years, I'd give them a B- for grade and a B minus. There's a lot of potential. There's a lot of future Hall of Famers they project, but we'll see. We'll have to see. I could put it up there with 2004 with maybe the Manning and Big Ben, 2012 with Russell Wilson, maybe Andrew Luck, Kirk Cousins. Or even going back to 1983 with Elway, Jim Kelly, and Dan Marino. So those are the top classes. So they have potential to be up there, but we'll never know.
Yeah. Or we'll know eventually. But I agree. When I first look at it, I try not to knee jerk, even though that's kind of my thing. I got a show called that. But it's hard. It's hard not to look at this class and see. I think you said the word potential. So much potential. Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields alone are two of the best quarterbacks to come out of college football in a long time. They happen to be these two are weird. We'll talk a little more about them, but how they came up essentially, parallel.
Yep, I know exactly about it. Yep.
Oh yeah, I know. We'll get into that. So they're great. I mean, Zach Wilson, I may not be as high on him as other people, but I also admit that I don't break down a lot of BYU tape. But people love him. And most people, for the record, think he's going to. Actually, they don't just think he's going to. They've got him really penciled in at the Jets to 2, to where they're not even really discussing the top 2 picks anymore. I think we all think Lawrence is going 1 to Jacksonville. And then like Trey Lance, unlimited potential. He checks every box that you would want in a modern NFL quarterback. But we know the problem. Played the level of competition. That's his thing. And I'll let you go down through these two here in a second. I'm just kind of give an overview. Mac Jones, he's probably the one that bounces around people's lists the most. Some guys have him, at 2 or 3. Other people like me think that. So I'll run this by. I'm a guy that I think if a quarterback can't be a starter, I don't worry about drafting a quarterback very high. That's just how I am. And Mac Jones is one of these guys that if I think he can't be an NFL starter, then I can't draft him in the first or second round based on that. Let's start there. How do you feel about Mac Jones? You've got him at 5. That's kind of how I feel. Just kind of tell us why.
I like him, but it's a very, very small sample size. And like many of other people have said, he's played with superstars. First round linemen, first round receivers, a scheme where guys are running wide open. He's hitting them, give him that. He's accurate when needed to be, very accurate when needed to be. And his decision making is impeccable. But it's just a small sample size. I've never seen him in chaos, in a bad situation. So I can't have him 2 or 3 like some other people have him. I like him. But, I see more upside in Trey Lance and Zach Wilson. And Trey Lance has the same sample size, and he's playing with less talent, but he's going against lesser talent. But
yeah,
it's kind of tough. It's tough, but
Lance is a really tough one.
Yeah, but I think long-term in the NFL, that's why I have him 5.
Yeah, I kind of agree. And what I see with Jones, and I hate to be rude, I said this on Twitter, yesterday or the day before. I hate to judge a guy based on body type. That's fair because there's a lot of guys that can play that they don't look like everybody can't be DK Metcalf, but I worry about long-term. And I said that about Burrow coming out last year. I understand what Burrow did. And I'm not saying I totally get why Cincinnati drafts him number 1, but can that body type hold up right now we're talking NFL starters. You're talking 15-year career. And that's not an exaggeration anymore. And I wonder, just physically, can they hold up for that long in the NFL long enough to give them a chance? We even saw Andrew Luck, who's a physical freak. Sometimes it just happens. So the thing about Jones is, you don't have to be an option quarterback these days, but man, I need to see like at least, Justin Herbert or somebody like that, I think kind of sets the tone for the modern NFL quarterback. Mahomes is on a different level, but to an extreme Patrick Mahomes, to where if you can escape enough to avoid a few dangerous hits, your career may last another 3 or 4 years. So Mac Jones, I don't know if he's what you need. Maybe he steps into a situation that's ready for him and a perfect offensive line and receivers, but that's rare in the NFL. Like very few teams, and then that team's probably already got a quarterback. You know what I mean? I don't know where he fits in, that he's going to have the chance to flourish like he did in Alabama, but that's just me. I could be wrong about that. Trey Lance. Okay, I'll ask you: Is he the best prospect we've seen come out of? It used to be Division, 1 AA, I think it was.
1 AA, yeah, FCS one.
It used to be, and now it's the FCS or whatever. Do you feel that he's the best prospect to come out? I know we just had Carson Wentz 3 or 4 years ago, but this Lance is something, man. Is he the best we've seen out of that division?
I think he's a little better than Carson coming out. He's very, very raw. Like, he has this very strong arm. He's a man amongst boys when you watch him on film and then his highlight tape against those guys. So I think he'll stack up well in the NFL. And he's very raw. Like, I think if developed by the right coach, it's always about where you go. It's always about fit.
Yes.
That's one of the biggest things. So it's all about where he goes. But if he goes to the right system and is developed by the right quarterback guru or quarterback mind, the sky's the limit. Like, and I mean that seriously.
I agree.
Because you wouldn't. A lot of people agree on it. You wouldn't, just because him playing on the FCS level would raise a lot of eyebrows, but a lot of people are saying the same things about him.
Yeah, exactly. I at first I was like that, and then I really watched him play, and then of course he proved it. With his pro day and stuff. Like, all the measurables are there, and then I thought to myself, well, it's no different than the NFL. You can take a quarterback, you're going to give him all the talent in what he does with that. So there's no reason, because so it kind of goes reverse. You brought it up. He plays FCS and he's playing with lesser talent and he's playing against lesser talent. So therefore it's technically even talent, and he destroyed him. And we can say the same thing about Zach Wilson. he gets a lot of flack for his level of competition, but also the rest of his team isn't. It's not like Ohio State to where the rest of his team's not going number one either.
Yeah.
And it's where you take a Justin Fields who literally had probably last year a total of 4, 5 NFL players on his offense, maybe 6, 7. So the same argument can be made that Justin Fields had everything to succeed. Same with Trevor Lawrence. So I think it's what you do in this situation that means a lot. And I don't think NFL teams really care. I think they know what they're seeing. Honestly, now some of these guys that used to come out of, like, I don't know, Houston used to put out guys that put up 6,000-7,000 yards passing, and there were some flaws that didn't translate there. But I don't think this is the same situation. Trey Lance's ability translates. So real quick, I'll throw out Trey. I'll put you on the spot here on Trey Lance. You said if he goes to the right team, sky's the limit. In your mind, do you have a team that would be the best fit for him?
I go Atlanta for his development and et cetera, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think the Falcons need to go somewhere else besides quarterback. I think they need to address defense. But Arthur Smith's system and sitting behind Matt Ryan for 2 years, I think, because Matt Ryan has a couple of good years left, could be pretty dangerous. And he already has the weapons. So
Atlanta seems like the best spot for a lot of these guys, and I see that where it makes sense. But then, guys like you also think they won't go that way. I haven't made up my mind that there might be that guy there, because a lot of people, when all this started, a lot of people thought Justin Fields slides to Atlanta. Now, this was before the San Francisco trade, which I'll ask you about that here in a second, because that kind of really changed a lot of things as far as the way we were thinking. But for a while, it looked like Justin Fields could slide to Atlanta, and I don't know how they can pass him up. I mean, if there's a perfect quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons, to me, it's Justin Fields. But I don't know if that's going to happen. So we'll get to some of the other questions about your list here in a second. But as far as San Francisco moving up, in your opinion, who do you think they moved up to take?
This is a tough one.
It is.
I think it's Justin Fields, to be honest, but the guys Kyle Shanahan's worked with in the past, it makes me think that he's going to go Mac Jones. Matt Ryan, Kirk Cousins, they're the same. They're really the same guy. Not very mobile, but very accurate. Not the strongest arm, but they make very, very smart decisions for the most part. It's really tough, but he could be going for Trey Lance as well. You don't know, because that West Coast system fits Justin Fields and Trey Lance.
It's perfect. Both those guys are perfect. And now, and to me, for everything we already talked about with Lance, I go Fields there because I think it's just a little more of a you've already seen it. I don't necessarily think there's a big difference between the two quarterbacks, other than we've seen what Justin Fields has done. And just like you said, game situations under duress, injured with the pocket collapsing, as to where Lance just hasn't got that chance. It's not his fault. But my gut feeling is still that they're going to take Fields. Yeah, so our friend Stuart Brooking thinks it's Fields also. I think they're going to go Fields, but that really did change the draft for sure. So, okay, so I'll go down some of the stuff that I actually prepared you for. So you got Lawrence at the top, so I'll assume that you think he's the best quarterback in this class. I guess I'll just ask you just a few things about Trevor Lawrence. Oh, and so full disclosure, everybody, Thad's a Jacksonville fan, so he's got stake in this. So what do you see about Trevor Lawrence that – I guess I should ask first, two-part question. How big is the gap between Trevor Lawrence and the next guy? And what do you see in Trevor Lawrence that makes you comfortable that he's the number one pick?
I think the gap is not too big, but there's a pretty decent gap. Like, he's the clear-cut number one, no discussion. Any team that had the number one pick would take him, and there would be no discussion. So that, says everything right there. But I like his IQ, his intangibles, his leadership. He's just been a winner everywhere he's gone, and he's always been. Well, we'll talk about the article later, but he has his mind set on one thing, and he's accomplishing those goals every time. So I just like everything about him for the most part. He doesn't have to say much. I just think he's a winner, and it's going to translate. All the traits you need in a franchise quarterback, he has.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have to worry about. He just got married too, so you don't have to worry about anything off the field for the most part. That's a big thing, I think.
That is. And what's funny about this class that you bring that up, and obviously, a lot of things can be behind the scenes and stuff, but in general, this is a pretty quote unquote clean class. I mean, these all seem to be pretty, straightforward, decent guys. This, and I'm glad you brought that up because that does factor in. You want professionals, and especially Lawrence and Fields had their chance, in the preseason to open up and talk about wanting to play and all that. They kind of proved their maturity, so to speak. I mean, Wilson's done nothing. Lance, I mean, everything you hear out of the kid's mouth it just gets better and better, honestly. Right. I'm sure he's just winning the interview rooms. Mac Jones has done nothing wrong. I honestly don't know much about Davis Mills or Kellen Mond. I like Mond. He's a 4-year starter. So obviously he's kept his stuff together. He's got to be a leader. The team has to like him and things like that. So that says a lot about him. Kyle Trask, I mean, the guy was never supposed to play quarterback at Florida. Things went his way, and now even at worst, he's definitely getting a shot in the NFL. Had one of the best seasons in college. So all these guys have personality traits that bode well for the NFL level, which is just another reason why it's such a good class. Heck, of all of them, I guess Justin Fields is one of the younger ones, and he still played 2 seasons. It's really impressive, honestly. I hope it turns out this way, but we all know the success rate is not that high. So
sadly, it's not. One of these, I say at least 3 of these guys on this list may turn out to be a bust. It's sad. I hope the best, but
I'm with you. It is, but you just know there's no way the 8 quarterbacks are going to. There's not going to be 8 quarterbacks from the 2021 draft class starting in a couple seasons. And it's, how do you pick it? What team do they go to? All that. So, what? Let's jump into that. Another question that I put on there. I mean, you obviously think Lawrence is first. That's a no-brainer there. You have Fields second. I think a lot of people do. Zach Wilson's moved up. We'll talk about the Fields-Lawrence drama stuff here shortly. So, which one of these guys? I don't know how to put this. Which one of these guys will get drafted and it will be a mistake for the team? Not where you have them, but where you think teams will draft them. Like we talked about, Mac Jones of San Francisco stands out to me. Something like that. I mean, which one of these guys will be, I hate to say mistake, it's negative, but won't wind up in the best situation? Is that a softer way to put it?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Number 1 for me is Mac Jones going to San Francisco, and I'm going to go back to him in a second. But 2 for me, it's not a specific team, but I don't think Kyle Trask is. I hear some talk about him going late in the first round, and I'm not a fan of that. I don't think he's going to pan out to be one of the best. I have him in number 8, but I don't think he's going to pan out to be a good NFL quarterback. But going back to Mac Jones in number 3, I just think that's Jimmy G all over again. He played very well in college, but like I stated earlier, he always had everything was perfect around him: receivers, protection, guys running wide open, playing against. He always had the better team. Yeah. And the NFL is not going to be like that. There's going to be some days where the pocket's not clean. You can't have happy feet. You got to keep your eyes down the field. You got to stay composed. And we've never seen that, so we don't know for Mac Jones, and that could happen. And he's a little bit like Jimmy G. I think Jimmy G is a little more athletic than Mac Jones. So I don't know if he's going to be able to get away from pressure. How is he going to deal when he's getting hit and having to pick himself up off the ground 10 times a game? That's my question. So if he goes there, I don't think it's going to go as well. I think it's just going to be Jimmy G all over again.
And another thing that's going to backfire, and I hate to pile on Mac Jones. I think Kyle Trask, you touched on it, but I think people have him lower, so we don't have to remind people. And I think Kyle Trask has all the same problems. Mobility, he needs a clean pocket. Think about Mac Jones. I went back and when I was, doing all the breakdowns for the games and stuff this year, because I do a High State podcast, Mac Jones never got hit. He's never moved off his spot. He never really had to play under duress, like you said. And I think what can backfire is he's going to San Francisco. San Francisco is a team ready to win next year. They had a lot of injuries last year. They still played really well. Could have made the wild card. They're a really good team. 2 years ago in a Super Bowl. So Mac Jones goes there. You don't draft him at 3 as a project. So you put him in there. He's automatically the starting quarterback on at least playoff caliber team, if not a Super Bowl caliber team, which that's also a different animal to in your. So a couple say some of these, you make a mistake for the New York Jets next year. it's you're probably going to get away with it because they're probably that one game is probably not going to cost them a season. As to where San Francisco can cost you a playoff spot, especially in the NFC West that is loaded right now. So that's another reason that I think that really puts Mac Jones in a tough situation. Whoever goes to San Francisco is in a tough situation, but I just think that's a bad spot for Mac Jones, who, like we saw Justin Herbert. I go back to that. He was able to fight through some growing pains last year because of his athletic ability and make some great plays and put together a really good season. I don't know if Jones can do that. And it may be too late. You don't want to get halfway through the season. He's taken, 15 sacks. He's banged up. And now you're trying to make a playoff run with a rookie who is shook. I know I'm putting a lot on Jones. That's just my thoughts on it. Sounds like you kind of feel the same way. So,
I do, especially with Herbert. I'll piggyback off that really quick. Herbert was I think he's more gifted, like you said, more athletic, but he was playing with better weapons as well, I think, and his athletic ability bailed him out at times.
And he played for a team that people really didn't. We always talk about the Chargers. People just don't care that much.
Yeah,
but
he had Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Hunter Henry, Austin Eckler. Those are some good players. So.
Yeah, and if that's an East Coast team, they may be ridiculing him because he didn't win enough. But for the Chargers, it's just how Phillip Rivers lived by that for 20 years there. He could have a down year, no big deal as long as he put up the stats. I don't know if San Francisco will be that way. Once again, Stuart Brooking, he's not sure that whoever San Francisco draft starts. I think that
I agree with that though.
Oh, do you? Okay.
What do you think about that?
I think if you're trading up, unless you've saw something from one of these guys that so I guess it goes two ways. If you trade up to number 3 and you're going to take a quarterback, that tells me that you absolutely know that whoever you take is a Hall of Famer. I know people think I'm crazy for saying this, but if you think about it, if you get drafted in the top of your draft class, they're saying you're a Hall of Famer. I mean, that's only saying that 1 or 2 guys from each class go to the Hall of Fame. That's kind of the number. So if you're not a Hall of Famer, you're potential. And then I think, are you going to let that guy sit? And I don't know if they have that patience now to trade up. I know they didn't give a lot to trade up, so I guess that skews it a little. I don't know. I think whoever they draft, they plan on being the starter by week 5, week 4. I really do. And I think you can teach a guy enough in a couple months to get him in there, especially how talented the guys at the top are. So I do think that they're gonna start 10 games next year at least. Whoever San Francisco.
Yeah, I can. Okay, I agree with that. I do definitely see 10. I can see the midseason transition with the team possibly flipping. But one thing I do want to say about this trade up with San Fran, one of the reasons why I feel like it's Lance or Fields is because they heard all the noise about the Jets going Zach Wilson, and this happened the same day as pro day, if I'm not mistaken. So I think the Jets kind of let it be known that they were sold on Wilson. And I think the only reason why they traded up is because they know their guy's going to be there. And and Mac Jones, I feel like he had a great season in Alabama. Don't get me wrong. Perfect season. But I think he was going to be there at 10 or they're pick 12, but the teams at 10 and 11 didn't need quarterbacks. So
I don't think
be there. Like the only reason I see them trading up is for one of those 2 guys.
Yeah, I don't think you trade up to get Mac Jones. I just once again I know this is becoming the Mac Jones show, but
he's from Jacksonville as well, so I want him to succeed.
I hope they all do. I'm with you. I hope they all do. I just don't know if you trade up to 3 to get Mac Jones. I think, and he did have a fantastic season, and I thought the same thing about Burrow last year. Once again, I knew he would go 1. I don't necessarily know that what he did at LSU translates for 15 years in the NFL. We'll see. He started off great, got hurt. We'll find out. But I just I don't know. I guess you said it best. It's a perfect situation at a perfect time. So let's talk a little bit about Kellen Mond here. You got him at 7. A lot of guys even have him off the board. But then I've heard other guys they're jumping him up to, I don't know, this guy could be 4th, and giving a lot of credit to everything he did. I only watched a few of his games as a college quarterback. I really enjoyed him. He did his thing. As an NFL prospect, I really didn't think much of it. I'll be honest with you. When I was watching these games, it didn't jump off the screen. but I never discount, anybody. I won't sit here and act like I watched, every Texas A&M game for 4 years. What do you think about Kellen Mond? I mean, you got him above Trask, who's a guy that I did watch. So obviously you must have a reasoning for having him at 7 instead of maybe even off the list.
Yeah, I like his, he's had a lot of starts. He's had a lot of work. He's had 93 total touchdowns over 4 years. He played a little bit his freshman year battling with Nick Starkel. But when Jimbo Fisher came, I feel like he really developed. Without Jimbo Fisher, I think he's not even considered a quarterback prospect. That pro style system fits well for the next level. I know Jimbo Fisher's quarterbacks haven't had the best success. Christian Ponder, EJ Manuel, Jameis for now, but I think he has some traits to translate as well with the modern NFL era. He can run, he can sling it. He's gotten more accurate as time is going along, so I think that's going to translate as well, and that system will bode well for him. But I mean, I'm just not the biggest fan of Kyle Trask. That's one of the reasons why I have him at Texas A&M. I think he was more of a product of who he was playing with, because if you watch that bowl game, he struggled he struggled a lot. So
yes, bad.
You never know. But I think Kellen Mond, for him, he can't thrive anywhere if he doesn't go to like a perfect spot. He's one of those guys that can't. I don't think he'll thrive.
So before we get to the two-headed monster of Lawrence and Fields here, I'll ask you one more thing. We brought up Jones and Mills. I kind of think that in the perfect situation, Kellen Mond could have a better chance at a better career than some of the other guys on the list, like we talked about Jones or Mills or Trask, especially. Maybe slides into a perfect situation for a decent team. Whatever their guy gets hurt. Hopefully, if he goes to whatever team that Tyrod Taylor's on, he's going to start in like game 2, because that guy's got the worst luck in NFL history. And then also, you have a guy, with Kellen. We saw it with Gardner Minshew. I mean, how many games did you see with Minshew? Like, he kind of just fell into that duty and played really, really well. And as to where if things go perfectly, maybe he doesn't ever get a shot to play. So I think Mon, being the veteran and with all the experience, could accidentally wind up being have a nice little career. That's hope so. But once again, if you got, let's say in theory, we think that Lawrence and Fields are no-brainers, now you got to start picking from the list of who's not going to make it, because it's just a fact that 4 and 5 quarterbacks aren't going to make it, from this list, which is crazy with all this talent. And personally, I don't think next year's near as good as this one.
But one thing we can say, every year there's like people that slip up. Like, we might say that next year's draft class won't be good, but there's going to be one guy that comes out. Joe Burrow from 2 years ago and Mac Jones from this year. Like, they weren't even considered day 1 or day 2 guys maybe, and now they're top 10 picks. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, if Tua doesn't leave early, Mac Jones may transfer. Yeah. I mean, who knows? It is a matter of circumstance. Joe Burrow stays at Ohio State. There's no way he winds up being the number 1 pick in the draft. Even if there's no way you can recreate that season that he had at LSU. So sometimes it's being, Zach Wilson, I think he had a little bit of that this year. Who knows if the schedule's different and things like that. If we're talking about Zach Wilson the same way we are, I think Fields and Lawrence were locked in. I don't think it mattered what they really did. Apparently Fields, it mattered more than others. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Okay.
So I'll get your thoughts on the Justin Fields drama first, and then the newest thing is the Trevor Lawrence. I don't even know what we call it. We'll call it drama, but to me, it's kind of ridiculous. We went back and forth. You guys did a show. You talked about the Justin Fields. I did an entire show talking about the Justin Fields situation, to where they essentially questioned his professionalism, his dedication, just in general, kind of for people that didn't get to watch your show, just kind of give us your thoughts on that whole Justin Fields debacle with Orlovsky.
I definitely don't agree with it. I know he double backed on that statement, but I just don't agree with it. Him being the first, last guy in, first guy out, definitely don't agree with that. He went vegan, so he cares about his body. He got on Good Morning America or something to talk about the Big Ten season. So he obviously cares. He wanted to play. He cares about the game. They talked about him being a one-read guy, non-anticipatory thrower. He waits for guys to come open, stuff like that. It's not true to me. They said his pocket awareness is not good either. I just don't agree with it. For 2 years, in 2 years, he lost 2 to 3 games, maybe. He put on flawless performances. At times I didn't like his ball placement, like some of it on the fade route. Some of the guys had to come back to the ball, jump ball. But when you trust your guys, you'll just put it anywhere for them to get it. But I think a lot of his stuff translates. He's a freak of an athlete with a strong arm. He's accurate when needed to be. There was a bunch of games, you're an Ohio State guy, so you watch all his games where he'd be 24 for 26 for like 340 yards and 4 touchdowns. Just looked like he's out there playing 7-on-7. So, I don't agree with any of it, and I think he's going to prove them all wrong. He hears all the noise, and all those traits they say he lacks are not true. And especially his anticipatory skills can only get better, from him trusting the receivers and working with his receivers, and pocket awareness too. And one of the things I think in the quarterback you can't change, which is accuracy for the most part, he already has. So I think all those traits that he lacks are all fixable for the most part. And he's not that far off, it's not that bad with those traits. So I think he's going to, take off at the next level, especially with Shanahan.
Yeah, it got a little blown out of proportion, all that stuff. Once again, you guys can go back and listen to my show or go listen to What the Game Means to Me show. We kind of went in on it. It was ridiculous. I think we both agree that it was more about the guys in the media creating content than it really was about Justin Fields at all. I watched the guy play every game, even the games at Florida. He plays in the pocket as the pockets collapse, and he's got it all. There's no doubt about it. So we'll get to, we got a good question from Stuart coming up. We'll cover that here in just a second. So let's talk about the newest fake controversy. So essentially, I don't have the quote in front of me, but a few days ago, Justin Lawrence basically says, football is not everything. Like I do other things in my life. And so then the media had to spend 2 days discussing whether Trevor Lawrence likes to play football, loves football, all these questions about his dedication. And then Lawrence has to come out with to clear things up, tweets and press, statements saying, no, I really like football. He has to even go too far to say, I might like it more than anybody, which we all know is, that's always something they just have to say. Yeah. But he has to come out and defend himself. After you said it earlier, the guy, the 3 amazing years he put in at Clemson, not to mention one of the best high school careers we've ever seen. And then now all of a sudden he has to defend whether he wants to play football or not. You're the first person I've got to talk to about this. What do you think about this? I don't even know what you call it. BS, I guess. What you call it.
BS is the word. It's not right. Like, why? Because he's, football's not everything to everybody. Other guys have other hobbies, but he's never shown that he doesn't want to play football at an elite level, that he doesn't care about the game, that he lacks the competitive nature you need to succeed. And like he said, he's never felt like he's had to have a chip on his shoulder, because literally I've lived in Georgia since I was 5. I've known about him. He's been the number 1 guy since 8th grade. So what is he? And he's never fallen off. Nobody's ever taken his spot. So he obviously has the work ethic and the drive to, succeed.
Yeah.
And I just feel like they're like, just because he's a relaxed guy, they might not like his personality. He's laid back, but he gets the job done, and he's got it done ever since he's been playing football. So I just disagree with it. And I hope some GMs I heard there are some GMs that are, scratching their heads. I just hope Shad Khan and our management's not shaking our heads, because I don't need to worry about that.
There is no chance that Fields not the best. Guys have, let's just say what it is. These guys come in, it's a job, and they're not just millionaires. They can do whatever they want. And, I don't talk about somebody's money, but I'm just saying these guys have the opportunity to do whatever they want with their life. They can afford to. Those two things aren't connected. Trevor Lawrence can do a ton of things off the field and still be dedicated in the film room and when he's covering the playbook and stuff. I thought, second to the Justin Fields BS, this was ridiculous. I understand I think he was trying to just say that, there's more that he's a well-rounded guy, you know what I mean? And it came off as he's not dedicated to football, which I don't know. I just think that's insane. Aaron Rodgers is out here hosting Jeopardy. Does anybody think that he's not going to show up to play next year?
Yeah.
I said it earlier. I said, this kind of content that they put out is geared towards, your 40-year-old ex-high school football players who swear that, if that was me, I would. No, you wouldn't. If somebody gave you $30 million, in July, you would buy a yacht and you would enjoy your life like everybody else is entitled to.
And he said in the interview, in the Sports Illustrated interview, that he wanted to be the greatest to ever do it. So
yeah, of course he does.
You don't have to say it. You don't even have to say it. Like he lets his actions,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The guy's got nothing to prove. He's done everything. I would just ask anybody, just watch his freshman season of football. That's all I need to know about Trevor Lawrence. It's amazing what he did. Obviously, you've known about him longer than I have. And it's kind of, so you got a unique perspective that him and Fields,
they literally, I'm gonna go with talk about that really quick.
Yeah, let's do it.
We have the same trainer, Coach Ron Veal. I don't think they've ever trained together, but they've had the same trainer since like 7th grade in Roswell, Georgia. And they were 1 and 2 in high school. It's just kind of crazy how that works out. I think they're friends, but they can't train together because they kind of know what it is, that competitiveness.
Yeah.
I don't think they ever train together.
And then, then they go, 1-1 against each other in college. Like everything just, it's really too perfect to be true.
Or beat them the first time, Fields beats them the second time. It's kind of crazy.
No, it's fantastic. I hope it keeps that way. I'd love to see. Essentially, I'll go ahead and say it. This could be like the Magic Bird, rivalry, through the NFL. It could be great. You know what I mean? I hope it works out that way. I hope they both get in a good situation. I don't think it'll be either one of them's fault if it doesn't go right. Let's
agree with that, especially with the Jaguars. I agree with that.
Yeah. I think they're can't miss guys. We got a question here from Stuart. I'll get back to real quick, and then we'll move on to some NFL stuff here. Here we go. So we don't have him on the list. So Stuart's asking about Jamie Newman, who opted out this year at Georgia. He transferred there from Wake Forest, but didn't play. And we understood a lot of guys didn't play last year. And then he's got a guy on here, Ian Book from Notre Dame. He likes a lot. He thinks he's going to be a long time NFL spot guy, in and out of the lineup or whatever. Do you have any thoughts on either one of these guys?
For my list, this might be controversial. I have Jamie Newman. I'm going to talk about him first. I have him 9. I liked his season at Wake Forest. The season before was very good. And I think he hurt himself by not playing at Georgia. But, you had to make a business decision. And Ian Book, I agree with Stewart, but I have him going like maybe 6th, 7th round, maybe even undrafted. But I do agree he'll be a spot guy, like a guy that pick for maybe 7 to 9 years is good, but he'll always be a backup. And my 10th guy on that list, I don't. It's kind of questionable because he didn't play very well at the college level. But I think Felipe Franks might have a prospect. He didn't put the best film on tape, but I think he has a small shot, and he has all the tools. So.
Yeah, his athletic ability is off the charts. I felt bad for him. I felt bad for him when he got hurt. That was a bad break. I kind of
in disguise for Trask. So.
Yeah, his good is really good, if that makes any sense. Like he's got a high ceiling, I think. That's a good. He had a pretty nice year at Arkansas, and Arkansas is that team's not stacked, and he fought through some games and got him some wins that I don't think they would have had. Newman is a great one. I mean, he could come out of nowhere. He's a guy that's going to have to fight for his next contract, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. He's a young kid. I mean. But his upside is huge too. Really physically gifted. That's a good point about that. Book, he's one of those guys on my list, and honestly, I put him in Mac Jones or Trask all in the same kind of package of like, if you're fighting to be a backup and bounce around the league, I hope you do. As far as your future and your professional life, I just don't really have a lot of care for that. There's a lot of those guys. I worry more about who can win me a playoff game. So I haven't put a lot of thought into. I'm not as high on Book as Stewart is. You guys will talk about that Friday when you do a show. But I could be wrong. I could be totally wrong. I'm kind of anti Notre Dame, so maybe that's part of it. It's just his air yards and stuff just aren't near what the top guys are. Like even Trask, Fields, I think that might be number one. But I like guys that are going over the top. But you can dink and dunk in the NFL and win some games. So I'm not saying there's not a spot for him. I'm really not. So all right, so that was a college edition. That was really cool. I think we could talk, Fields and Lawrence for days on this show, and I've done it. I want to get your thoughts on some of the NFL stuff real quick here. Let me change my banner here. So let's first talk about. I ran a few of these past you. We're going to talk about some of the new quarterbacks that moved, and what made me think of this is we'll start with Sam Darnold. So Sam Darnold gets traded to Carolina. And then it's his fourth year coming up, which is important because the fifth year is the option year. So your fourth year as a rookie quarterback is a big deal for your next contract. And all of a sudden, everybody's like, "Oh, he got out of New York. It's all their fault. He didn't have any help. He's going to go to Carolina and flourish." And I'm going to give you my opinion on blame for young quarterbacks. So everybody automatically says, "Well, Darnold didn't have anybody to work with," and I'm like, "Well, you would think that because also if a quarterback can't get the ball to a guy, he's not going to have a good season." Let's not, outside of scouts, none of us really watched the game to see if a wide receiver got open and didn't get the ball thrown to him. You know what I mean? So we don't really know how good receivers are if they don't get the ball. So to me, I think Darnold's getting off kind of easy. They're blaming, Gase and the Jets and all that, and then now they think he's going to be a superstar in Carolina. So what's your thoughts on Sam Darnold?
I think he's a very gifted quarterback with a lot of potential. He just needs to refine some stuff. And I think this is the perfect situation. I want to talk about that a little bit because I think it's crazy that some people are saying the Panthers might go quarterback. I don't see that happening at all. And I think for Sam Darnold to get traded to Carolina with Matt Rule and Joe Brady is a great spot. You saw what he did with Joe Burrow in college. Teddy Bridgewater didn't do the best, but Curtis Samuel and Robbie Anderson had career years in his system. So
that's a good point.
Weapons too. Not Curtis Samuel. DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson will still be there. And CMC basically kind of had the year off, so he'll be fresh and ready to go. And I honestly believe he's going to thrive. That team, they went all defense last year, and they played well. Even though they won only like 6 or 7 games, they're very competitive. And I feel like this is a great spot for him. I think he just needs to. He's very wild, and that's what Matt Rule likes, though. Teddy Bridgewater was one of those guys that would check down the ball. Sam Darnold's going to take those chances and go over the top, which
that's Matt Rule likes.
You just need to – his decision-making needs to get a little bit better, but I think he's going to thrive. I'm one of those Sam Darnold believers.
Okay.
For success.
Yeah, see, and I love Teddy Bridgewater, so just to touch on that real quick, I think that was a bad fit for Teddy. He absolutely had to go there and take the money, and he earned it. But it was I never thought that was a good fit for Bridgewater for everything that you just said. He's he's kind of a dink and dunk guy, keep things in front of him, but he got wins that way. He's a limited quarterback and he gets the most out of it. And I thought that was a bad situation for him, but that's a great point you brought up about, you got Curtis Samuel paid. I can tell you that running back from Ohio State. So that's a good point. I don't know if I think Darnold's talented. I think that people, in my opinion, I think a lot of people get caught up and he's got 3 or 4 highlights, especially the throw against San Francisco to where, his potential is still there. And he's a young guy. Once again, I root for all these guys. I don't root against them, but I don't know if I believe that everything was the Jets' fault. We'll see. Cause I kind of like Carolina. So I hope it works out. So what about Carson Wentz? How do you feel about Carson Wentz? That's another guy that's kind of polarizing. 2 years ago, if you'd asked me, I'd have said he's going to be the best quarterback in the NFL for 5 years. And then now I don't know if I still believe that. So what do you think about the Carson Wentz situation in Indianapolis?
I hate to say it, man. I'm 2 for 2 in this. This is another guy that I believe in. I hate to say it because I'm a Jags fan, but him going to the Colts I think it'll be kind of dangerous. Him reconnecting with Frank Reich. They were together in 2017, and you saw what he did, 33 TDs in 13 games. He's going to thrive, man. They have everything that he didn't have in Philly, too. They had a good O-line in Philly, but they stayed on the injury report. And, in Indy, their O-line is dominant with Quentin Nelson. They have a great run game with Jonathan Taylor, and they have some decent young playmakers. Paris Campbell, your guy.
Yep.
Michael Pittman from USC, and they brought T.Y. back. So I think if he can, get him back into that 2017 form, it can be dangerous. And I think the reason with Carson Wentz, I think the talent is still there. He has all the traits. I just think in Philly he lost his confidence. It started when he got hurt. Foles won the
That was
Super
my
Bowl.
next question. I'm glad you covered that.
Yeah, the Foles win the Super Bowl. The statue he had every time he pulled into the building, he saw the statue outside. Then they draft a quarterback in the second round, which you don't see teams do if they believe in their quarterback. So his confidence was just all over the play, and it reflected on the field.
That's a good point to bring up. And Indy's a great place to play. It's not. Indy loves their football, but they also love their players, and they won't turn on him. They'll support him, and if he's playing good, they'll stand behind him. And not everybody's cut out like Tom Brady. Tom Brady's an assassin. He can play anywhere at any time. It's not every guy's made that way. Apparently, Carson Wentz has some rabbit ears. Let's just be honest about it, and that's fine. And he's probably just an emotional guy, and he cares. He's just made a different way. And the Indy fans will support him, and they will be behind him. And I don't think he'll have to worry about his job day in and day out. As to where Philly, as soon as Foles wins that Super Bowl, I mean, Carson Wentz's fate was sealed. It really was. And nobody on this planet, except for Philly fans, thinks that Foles is a better quarterback. But
trust me, I believe 100%.
Yeah, so I think that Indy is a perfect spot for him. He can kind of blend in. He's perfect for that area. I know a lot of Indy fans. There's several on the network, and I really think it's going to be a comfortable spot for him. So let's talk about Matthew Stafford going to the Rams. I'm on record. I've always been a Stafford fan, and I know I can see why people wouldn't be, because they think might be a lot of empty stats. Just from watching him over the years, I just think he's great. And he's a guy that I think actually was in a bad situation for it's been 10, 12 years now. He may accidentally set every NFL record for quarterbacks, but and when he goes to the Rams prove that they're set. Their defense is set. Their offense is good. McVay's a good coach. I think this is the best situation outside of maybe Brady going to probably better than Brady going to the Buccaneers last year. I think this situation is just awesome for a quarterback to get traded into he's still in the prime of his career. He's played a long time, but he was young when he came in. I think Stafford is a no-brainer here, and I think he's going to have one of the best seasons in the league. What do you think about Matthew Stafford to the Rams?
I've always been a fan since his UGA days,
Oh, of course, yeah.
Is he
from that area? Is he from down south? I'm not sure.
Texas.
Oh, is he Texas guy? Oh, that makes sense. I think every quarterback's from Texas. My goodness. How did he get out of Ohio State? We get all the Texas quarterbacks. Anyway.
I have no idea. Mark Richt at the time had Georgia rolling. But I've always felt like he's been a good quarterback. He's just another guy that's been in a bad situation. That's why, Calvin Johnson had enough of it. He's like, it's not a winning organization. He just said, if you're not going to trade me, I'm done. So they finally let him go, which is good for him. He's never been set up for success. When he's had a decent running game maybe once or twice, but his defense has never been top tier. So he just never had help. Going to the Rams, to answer your question that you wrote in the notes, I do think he makes them a way better team, but not top four.
I did. So everybody knows. Ask that if he made the Rams a top 4 team, which is essentially be a conference champion. So not quite.
They're good enough. Their defense is rocking. They did lose John Johnson and was Troy Hill, the slot corner, which he made a lot of plays last year.
That's huge.
But I think they're going to be a good team. That defense, Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey covers half the field. Sean McVay, he got the best out of Jared Goff. He made Jared Goff better than what he really is, I think. And with a quarterback like Matthew Stafford, I think their offense will take off. I think they need a little more weapons. I know they lost Gerald Everett and Josh Reynolds, but Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods and Tyler Higbee will be pretty decent, but I don't know. I think he'll make them better, though. Like, Jared Goff needed really good weapons. Matthew Stafford can deal with average weapons and make them better. But even though Cooper Kupp's better than average to me, but I think he's going to take off.
He's slightly better than average, decent receiver. But what's good about wide receiver situation, they could draft a receiver. I mean,
they draft very well, too.
You can draft an 800-yard receiver in this draft in the 4th round, in all honesty. You can free agents. I mean, guys on practice squads. They're receiver – if that's the one place where you got to upgrade, your team's in pretty good shape, because it's just right now in football, there's just an overabundance. You don't want to be looking for a starting corner or offensive linemen. Running backs are a dime a dozen. Receivers, you can pick up quality receivers, especially with Stafford, because he knows how to get a lot out of a receiver because he can make every throw. We talked about that earlier, that Darnold, the advantage he has in Carolina, he can make every throw. So Stafford, whatever type of receiver you get, if you can get open, he can get you the ball from anywhere on the field, just like Aaron Rodgers does in Green Bay. And I think that's huge. I think that those two are probably closer talent-wise than people think, and I hope I'm right about that.
No, you're 100% right.
Yeah.
He's never won, and people don't watch the lines like that, so they don't know. All those type of throws, those crossbody throws, those no look throws, all that. He can do it all.
Yeah, he's amazing. I'm a big fan of his, and I like the Rams too. I just like the way they're built, and I like quality teams. The more we have, the better. So then we'll piggyback on that real quick. What happens to Goff? I guess the question I'm asking here is, how much better do you think Stafford is than Goff? What happens to Goff in Detroit? I'm worried about him, man.
I think they'll see the difference. The reason why the Rams lose some games next year won't be because of the quarterback play, which was,
there you go.
Was the case. Goff wasn't terrible, but he just didn't live up to being a number one pick. But I think he struggles in Detroit. He doesn't have any weapons. Golladay and Marvin Jones are both gone. That's why in our mock draft I had them taking a receiver. Whichever one's left, Pitts, Chase, or Smith, they got to take one.
Yeah.
But I think he's going to struggle. Like I said before, Sean McVay got the best out of Jared Goff.
Yeah,
and he doesn't have him anymore. He's going to Dan Campbell, which is he's more of a hype guy. He's a defensive minded head coach.
Yeah,
so he needs him having an offensive minded coach really helped him out, and I think he's going to struggle without that guy, in his ear. That system really helped him out.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Stewart, and I've always said every quarterback is a system quarterback. Goff benefited from where he was more than about anybody in the league. My opinion is that I'm with you. We're going to find out exactly. I guess we'll find out exactly how good a coach McVay is, because there's nothing he can't do now with his offense. Like Matthew Stafford can do anything he wants. It should get a lot better, and I predict that Goff will have a tough go. I'm kind of rooting for the guy because it'd be cool to see him play really well and say, see, here you go. Either way, financially, he's fine after that contract that he's after. Here's the fact of the matter is, Goff's been to a Super Bowl. That is, at some point you got to look at winning. Goff did what it took to go to Super Bowl and could have won it. He was
did well, though. That was
he was the reason they didn't win it.
Imagine Matthew Stafford playing in
that game.
Yeah,
the Rams were the better team on the field, but they were missing one player, and unfortunately, that's football now. All right, so we'll move on to the next question I gave you. Is there a quarterback in the NFL right now? More than likely it's going to be a young guy, or maybe somebody's not thinking of, that next year is going to become a superstar. Sorry, kind of like what we saw. I forgot his name. Josh Allen. Josh Allen, kind of like what we saw Josh Allen do in Buffalo. Take that leap to superstar status. Anybody you got your eye on?
Superstar, that's tough to say. I think that
I don't grade superstars. Yeah, you don't have to win 8 Super Bowls. So I guess a player that can go from maybe we don't know how good he is to he puts his team in a conference championship. How about that?
Okay, I'm going to go 2 guys. The first one is questionable. I've already said it. I think Carson Wentz with that roster, he's going to have a bounce-back season. I don't know if he's going to be an MVP candidate. He might be. But with that team and that defense, I think he can, have a breakout season with reconnecting with Frank Reich, and they can be right back where they were in Philly. And my second guy, I don't think it's really questionable. Before he got hurt last year, he was having a decent rookie season. I think Joe Burrow, if they draft, if they help him, if they give him some more help, the way he was trending, even though they weren't winning, I think you can kind of see when you have a quality QB and there's quality QB play. Everything was good, from his accuracy to his pocket presence. He wasn't making very many decisions, and he was running for his life. So I think if they draft Sewell, or if they pair him with Jamar Chase, you guys should watch out for Joe Burrow. I see him rise.
That's what I was going to ask you. An underrated pick in the draft. I just I'll get sidetracked here, but real quick, I've noticed that an underrated position in this draft is the Cincinnati Bengals. So you kind of just covered that. They have a big decision to make for their future, because they're going to have, between people reaching for wide receivers or taking a quarterback, they're going to have basically, they can fill a gap in their roster at their pick. And that's a lot of pressure on that. So you think it's receiver? I think
It's tough because you want to protect your investment.
Yeah.
So you can go Sewell, Jamar Chase, if he's what they come, what if he's one of those, maybe a Hall of Fame receiver, a 10,000 yards for a career type guy, you never know. But T. Higgins, you can like you said though, the reason why I'm okay with them going O-line and skipping out on Chase, there's a lot of good receivers. Like you said, you can get a decent receiver in the 4th round. And they got T. Higgins with the first pick of the 2nd round last year. Yeah. And he was Joe Burrow's favorite target. So we'll see.
So I'll give you a bonus question here, because since you brought it up and you've already touched on it. I saw somewhere the other day, and I can't remember which quote unquote expert had this list. They had their top 5 as Lawrence, and then they had Pitts, Waddle, Chase, and Devontae Smith. That 4 of their top 5 are receivers. I can't believe that we're at a point in football to where 4 of the top 5 guys are receivers. That over, this was his top 5 available over offensive lineman. I'm kind of a, in the first round, I like to grab a defensive guy that maybe can change your team. I think we saw that with Tampa Bay in the Super Bowl, that their linebackers really determined that game, and they were draft picks. But I don't think we live in a world. I can't believe we live in a world to where 4 of the top 5 guys are receivers. That's a stretch for me. I think Bengals need to go offensive linemen. How do you feel about, real quick, I know it's quarterback show, real quick, how do you feel about the wide receivers? Do you think that, if you're saying they're top 5 talent, do you think they're that good, or are we just getting caught up in the numbers?
I just think this is, I don't know, maybe the guys at the top are graded very, very high, and that's why they have them there. I don't know about Devontae Smith being in the top 5, but Jamar Chase and Kyle Pitts, I can go for that. Like, Jamar Chase dominated the SEC, and he was only 19 years old. He was only 19 years old at the time. So, and he took the year off, and he's still in the top 4. So that lets you know what scouts think of him. But I don't like what happened with Sewell. Sewell was a lot as the number 1 lineman. Then he started slipping behind Slater, who didn't even play this year. And then he was a lock for the Bengals pick. Now he's not. I don't
either. The guy's done nothing but he's one of the best players on the field for Oregon, and he jumps.
He hasn't done anything to hurt his stock. He hasn't put any film on tape to hurt his stock. So
I think that that's where we kind of go back to where sometimes you just need a talking point. And then I think when it comes up, whatever team is first that needs an offensive lineman's taking him. I don't think there's a question about it. Even that's the thing about drafting. I know we got off topic here, but that's the thing about drafting offensive linemen, is that they can be all right, and there's basically 3 positions you can move them around, and you can still get an NFL starter even if a guy's not great. As to where a quarterback, if he's not good, you can't move him to wide receiver. That's it. There's only one quarterback on the field. If he's not as good as you thought, then you wasted a pick. So that's why I like guys that can move positions, or there's a spot to hide them. You can still get something out of that pick. The Bengals have to take offensive linemen. There's no question about it. This whole thing on the receivers, I'm a little like Devontae Smith. Maybe I'll do a wide receiver show. Devontae Smith, I don't quite get it. I'll just straight up say, I don't know if 165-pound number 1 receiver is the future. That's just me.
After all those hits and stuff, I agree. It's tough. It's tough, but I think.
And also, you can't draft a guy like, say they're going to draft Smith. Like, I know a lot of people are saying the Dolphins. Say they draft Smith, a top 10 player. You also can't put him in the slot. If you draft a receiver top 10, you have to put him on the outside. And I just think that's he made so many plays in college by moving around. And that's kind of Alabama's thing. Like, put Devontae Smith into motion, see who's going to cover him. If it's a guy that can't cover him, which is everybody in college, except maybe some of his teammates, then we'll throw it to him. I don't know if the NFL works that way. So I'm curious. I'm curious to see, it's essentially like drafting a running back top 5 and then making him a 3rd round running back, or a 3rd down running back. So anyway, we got off topic there, but that's kind of what I do here on Jeff.
It's a tough choice though, but with this receiver draft being so deep, I think it makes the decision a little earlier to go O-line early.
Yes, to me, it's a no-brainer.
And if you hit on it, this is a 10-year piece at minimum. O-line is, I say you have a 10-year career.
The last thing on the receivers, though, so you believe in Kyle Pitts?
Kyle Pitts and Jamar Chase I think they won't be busted at all. I don't think. Okay. Kyle Pitts, the only thing, I don't know. I think he's a mismatch waiting to happen. No, I don't.
No matter what, he's a modern guy. He fits in. I think it depends on the team. Everybody. He's not a no-brainer for every team, but any offensive coordinator will be glad to have him and then figure it out. Give me Pitts. There was probably mid last season, I had him as my best player in the country. Above, I judge players by how much better you are than the next guy. And it halfway through the season, I said he's my favorite player. It changed just because, you know, I guess you just talk yourself out of it, just like we talked about with Sewell. And so now I'm like, I don't know. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. 6 months ago, I thought this guy was the second best player in the country. I can't change my mind now.
And this is the perfect time for him to come in. Like, you know, some tight ends were before their time.
It's a great point.
This is fitting. This is going to be
yes.
How the league is going now, it's going to fit perfectly. And
yes, exactly. So before we start doing a tight end show, we're gonna get wrapped up here. So we talked about the next superstar. So going into next season, who is at the end of next year? Who are we going to say is the best quarterback in the NFL?
I think this is a no-brainer. I'm going with Patrick Mahomes.
Sticking with Patrick. Okay, good.
He's very hungry. He didn't like how the season ended. He got some help. The Chiefs spent money in free agency on O-lineman. They got Joe Tooney and some other guys. So I think he's ready to go. Go ahead.
I went back and watched that Super Bowl a couple times. Patrick didn't have his best game, and I know it's off the field stuff, but I think that Andy Reid, like what happened with his son that week and stuff, it's not an excuse, but I believe there were some distractions there that Mahomes just didn't look the same. He was, you know, he had the injury earlier on. I was really hard on him coming off the game because things can be your fault, and that doesn't mean you're a bad player. You know, he didn't have his best game, and he got outplayed a little bit. But I think some of the things that happened in the month before that kind of took away. I think he's still the best in the NFL, you know, without a doubt. But you know, I think there's at least tape to watch to question it, which is fun for guys like us. You know, we get to debate it and question it. So
well, I'm going to ask you this question.
No, go ahead.
Who would be, if not Mahomes, who would be your guy that you think is going to be the best or second best?
Honestly, I know it's a lot to say. There's a lot of ifs here, but I really think after the season, so there's two answers here. I know I'm chickening out. I think Stafford's going to have one of the best seasons because of everything we already talked about with Stafford. But I really believe in Dak Prescott. I truly think he's a great quarterback, and he knows he knows how to play in the NFL and gets a lot out of his team. I don't think what they did early part of the last season before he got hurt was a fluke. I think those are legitimate numbers he's putting up. And I think with that NFC East, as bad as it was, Zach runs roughshod over the NFC East. They may have ripped off 9 wins. I just like the way the guy plays. Normally, I said Aaron Rodgers for like 10 years, but I think it's finally a step back maybe. You know,
what if they get another receiver? What if they hit on another receiver in the draft? Do you think that helps?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Real quick, I just think about, I don't want to be wrong saying this. I think Justin Jefferson was gone before, but what if they hit on somebody like Justin Jefferson in the draft last year? It would have gotten pretty.
Yes.
It wouldn't have been fair, I don't think.
No, that's a good point. That's a good point. So that's why I said, I guess there's two answers to how good your seat. Like sometimes I watch Rodgers play and I'm like, wow, that was amazing. I didn't give him the hall pass after the NFC Championship game like everybody else did. I thought there was I thought some of that stuff was his fault, quote unquote, his fault. I thought he kind of got outside of himself and things like that. But the fact of the matter, I mean, he's still great. You know, the top 4. I don't think that Josh Allen is ready for that level. You know, I still have him down in the bottom of the top 10 or whatever. Wentz could have Wentz's season is going to be off the charts. But I guess if at the end of next season, if you ask who I want to be on my franchise quarterback, I think it might be Prescott, Mahomes, those two, probably one of the rookies. Who knows, man? Justin Herbert, if he puts back-to-back seasons like that and figures out a way to shore it up a little bit, we might be talking about that guy as a top 3 quarterback.
For the way he just came out, like he didn't even know he was starting to go head with Mahomes like that and look like he belonged. Like he'd been taking first string reps all week in practice. That was shocking because there were a lot of I know you were paying attention to what they were saying about him before the draft. there weren't a lot of people high on him.
I was way down on him. I've publicly apologized to him about 8 times last year. Me and Couch Coach Live, every show we did, I was like, I apologize, Justin. I was wrong. I was on the record because, just like I said earlier, if I think a guy can't be a decent starter, I don't care much more past that. Other than that, it's just a job. And I was Herbert. You know what? I would say I would put him in the Mac Jones category I have this year. It's like,
it's scary though. You never
I don't want him. I couldn't have been more wrong about Herbert. Like, I watched that Rose Bowl game and everybody went crazy. And I said, all he did was run the ball. And that doesn't translate. I was completely wrong. Everything he does translated, and he had a fantastic season. And that's probably the most wrong I've been about a player in a while.
But I mean, it was a lot of people. He even went back for another year in college because he didn't think he was ready yet. So,
it's amazing. Yeah. So I was, everybody tried to tell me. So that's why some of these guys on your list, I give them credit. I mean, I could be totally wrong about, again, like I was Justin Herbert. And Justin Herbert looks like, so that could be a guy that in 2 years we're talking about. I think Goff takes a step back. Like I said, I think Stafford's gonna have a great year. I believe that
maybe.
I believe Dak's in a good situation, and that everything that happened last year was just one of those. Even Brady missed a year with a knee injury, came back, and he was fine. I mean, it happens all the time. So I do believe in the guy, and regardless, he's going to be fine when he's sitting in his beach house in Bora Bora or wherever it is, whatever he's going to do with that contract. That's great. He played that out really well. So, all right, man, that wraps it up. I try to keep it short for you, but man, we get to talking quarterbacks. And
good, man. I
it's
enjoy
just endless. Yeah, no, we really appreciate it. You guys, you and Jelani are doing a great job over there on your show. You guys are always thoughtful. You think a little outside the box. It's not your routine show. You dig a little deeper, and you guys are doing a lot of fun. You've invited me on a couple times, and it's a blast to talk to you guys. You're always prepared and thought out. So that's great, man. I appreciate you being on that. And then this week you got a show with Stuart Brooking, right? Next week
on Friday.
Yeah,
Friday.
Yeah. So go check that out. We're all members of Off the Ball Network, offtheballnetwork.com. And things are going really good right now. I'm sure Stuart will take this show. He was here joining us today. He will piggyback on this and have some follow-up questions. He's probably going to grill you on some of them. He's probably going
to disagree on some stuff for sure.
Hey, but since you were nice to Carson Wentz, he's going to take it easy, man, for sure. So where can everybody find you on Twitter, Thad?
You can find us at What the Game Means to Me podcast on Twitter and Facebook. Our episodes are loaded on Spotify and Apple Music as well. Apple Podcasts as well, so you can find us there. And then you can follow me on Instagram at That Underrated, where we also have What the Game Means to Me podcast as well on Instagram.
Awesome, man.
I'll follow us there, and we'll be coming with to you guys with more content on a weekly basis.
Oh, absolutely, man. Hey, thanks a lot for joining me. Thanks everybody that watched. Thanks everybody that listened. Have a great week, everyone. The draft's coming up. We got more things coming out. I think we just decided Thad's our quarterback guru. So we're gonna run with that. Have a great week, everybody, and thanks for tuning in.